Good morning, everybody, and welcome to November's MV Pro exclusive webinar. The topic today is selling on city water. I know we still have a few people kind of straggling in here, so I do want to just mention a couple things for those of you that are not familiar with how WebEx works. If you are I have everybody muted so that we don't have a lot of background noise. Some of you are listening in on the road. So if you would like to participate, this does not have to be the Kelly Thompson lecture hour. Feel free to ask a question. You can unmute yourself by right-clicking on your name and just unmuting yourself, or better yet, so that we can see if you want to chat in. Open the chat box and chat a question, just type a question in there. Make sure that when you do that, please, that you have the send to checked on everyone so that we can have that, your question or comment recorded publicly. So without any further delay, let's get started here. Anybody that has ever seen any of my presentations before, you know that I like to start off by saying thank you. I really do appreciate the opportunity to serve you in this way. It is my goal with every presentation that I give to make sure that the information that I give to you is at least as valuable as the time that you're giving to me. I've sat through an awful lot of these things and at the end of it hung up and said, wow, what a waste that was. I really do not want that to be the case with each of you. On that same note, you know, I always like to evaluate how I'm doing and what I can do to make it better. So any feedback that you have, either a phone call or in writing, email, anything that you can tell me that can make these better is very much appreciated, and that goes whether it's critical or positive. I like them both, so I strive to make these better for as we move forward into the future. I do want to just mention a couple things here also that we have now. Moti-Vitality is offering our professional mentoring services. So if you are looking for WQA certification, or even just you have questions. I know WQA right now is slammed with questions and people wanting information about the mentoring program and the new certification program. I've been pretty active with WQA on putting that stuff together and staying in tune with. I serve on the committee to kind of help improve that, and I helped write the program. And so if you have questions on the WQA mentoring program, how it works, what the changes are, or if you need a mentor, please reach out to us, let us know. And then quickly, next month, our Moti-Vitality special, our Moti-Vitality exclusive webinar next month is primarily going to be for owners and managers, and Jen Smith is going to be presenting that. We're calling it Embezzled, and basically these are just some tips and observations that we've seen as we've worked with dealers across the country. We actually, in the last couple years, have had a couple of our clients that have had office managers or people within their companies that have taken it upon themselves to take some of the cash flow and put it into their own bank accounts or spend it on their own. And so we've been working pretty closely to learn how to advise companies to prepare against that. So please join us on that. If nothing else, it may reinforce that what you're doing is great. But Jen will be presenting that on December 16th, and that will be free for Moti-Vitality members. We'd love to have you on, and any comments or feedback that you have there as well. So put that on your calendars. This webinar, as are all of them, will be recorded and uploaded. Might get to it today, definitely by tomorrow. So if you have somebody else that would like to view this, in your organization, you will have access to it as a Moti-Vitality member. Okay, so let's get started. We got a lot of information to cover today. I'm going to try and keep this right at the hour mark, and so let's jump right into it here. Okay, so why sell on the city water market? I think it's important to note here that my sales career started primarily on well water, and I loved selling on well water, especially in Michigan, where we had just a plethora of problems. I mean, everything from iron to flammable water. We had methane gas, arsenic, lots of hardness, high TDS, and I didn't realize that learning how to sell on problem water was a challenge. I didn't realize that it's a lot easier to learn how to sell on city water. I grew up in this industry in an area in Detroit water, which nationwide has some of the best water. I mean, it's about 7 grains hard, about 110 TDS. It's up north, so there's not a ton of chlorine in it. And the general perception or the general belief is that Detroit city water is some of the best water in the country. They do a really good job at it. Now, that has declined a little bit as Michigan's economy suffered some in the past, but in the past decade. But in general, people still have a lot of faith in the city water. So as I've now worked with dealerships across the country, I've seen that that's not uncommon. In fact, I see that same attitude with people that have 15 to 20 grains of hardness. And shoot, I talked to a client yesterday in Texas that has about 15 to 20 grains of hardness, but nearly 1,000 TDS on their city water supply.
S3.
Hello, do you guys have your camera on? So be careful. Somebody just popped on a camera. I could see a couple people staring at you. You guys don't want to see me on my camera, trust me. All right, so why sell on city water? Well, there tends to be less competition, especially if you have a well water area. Your competitors aren't really selling a lot on city water because they're afraid of it too. So in a lot of areas, and this is obviously different in different areas of the country, different markets, but in a lot of areas you tend to have a lot less competition. You have a lot larger market area, lot larger area to work in. It's definitely a lot easier to train new sales professionals because all you have to teach them is, I mean, your water is basically the same. Every house you go in, maybe slight variations. There may be different water pressure concerns depending on where they're at on the water line, on the water main, but basically all you have to do is teach them to find the water meter, where it comes into the home, and how to treat that existing water. So you can get a sales professional in the home a lot faster if they don't have to learn all the variables that can come from problem water. I mean, with problem water or on well water, as most of you probably know, you can have two houses side by side and have completely different water analysis results. And I think that we have an industry responsibility, and we're going to talk a little bit about that here and as we move forward on the next few slides. An industry responsibility to educate people and to help get them off the bottled water habit, and just a lot of responsibility in that area. So this is what I hear most commonly. People in my area don't buy water treatment. They don't buy softeners. They don't buy reverse osmosis systems. And I hear that quite a bit on city water. They'll say, you know, we only do the wells because people around here in the city water, they just don't buy water treatment. So let's explore that just a little bit. First off, I would assume if that's true, then when you go into the grocery store in the middle of the city, any grocery store or any convenience store, you won't see an entire aisle full of bottled water. If people are not buying water treatment on city water, you're not going to see this at the grocery stores. I have yet, in all my travels throughout the country in 44 states so far, in multiple cities, have yet to see a grocery store or a convenience store or really any store that did not have stacks and stacks and stacks of bottled water, and usually there are empty spaces on that shelf. If people are buying bottled water, the stores would not stack these shelves if people weren't buying bottled water. And if people are buying bottled water, it means that they are concerned. They have reasons that they're buying bottled water. If people weren't buying bottled water, the stores would not dedicate this much real estate to bottled water. So this really is evidence in of itself that people are willing to pay for water treatment. So let's explore that a little bit further. And I want to look at some of the numbers that this year's National WQA, the Water Quality Association, put out on their Consumers Opinions study. And let's look at some of the statistics, just some of the overview statistics that came out in WQA's consumer study this year. First off, when you look at the number of people that are concerned about health contaminants in tap water, this is city water, okay, tap water, you've got 59%, two-thirds of them are either concerned or very concerned about the contaminants in their tap water. That might be a good indicator as to why they're buying bottled water. Now look at this. This is interesting, and this is very key to the approach for selling on city water that we're going to talk about here in just a few minutes. 77%. And look at the trend, okay? 2011, 2013, 2015. This number is increasing. It's increasing. 77%. Three-quarters of the people out there, a little more than three-quarters of the people out there are using bottled water. Now, in comparison, let's look at how many have a water softener installed. 16%. That stayed pretty consistent. Now, here's the thing that puzzles me, and it's something that I try when I'm training a new sales professional to look at city water, or to sell not only on city water, but really on any market, well water or city water, but in particular city water, because that's what we're talking about today. If it's 16% of the people, you go to the mall and you look at the people there at that mall, 16% of them, according to the national averages, are buying water softeners. 77%, three-quarters of them, are buying bottled water. Now, here's what's interesting to me about this, and this falls right into the less competition on city water. When you look at the advertising that we do, look at go through a home show, look at a home show, look at if there's 6 different water treatment companies at a huge home and garden show, look at what they are predominantly selling or marketing in that booth. They've got their softener display, they're talking about less salt, they're talking about soap usage, they're talking about all this stuff that the water softener does. And drinking water is a side item. I believe actually that there is a real disconnect in what water treatment dealers across the country and what sales professionals in the home are selling and what our customers are buying. And look at the consistency of these numbers, 2011, 2013, 2015. These numbers stayed fairly consistent across the board. We as water treatment dealers and as sales professionals are out there trying to convince people to buy water softeners and then complaining about city water customers that it's not an aware market. I believe very strongly that we do have an aware market. It's just that what we're trying to sell them is different than what they are interested in buying. Now, I'm not saying that you cannot, if somebody's got 15 grains of hardness, even 7 grains of hardness, they need a water softener. But they're not aware that they need a water softener yet. The first step is to get in front of them, to get in that home, focus on what they're interested in first. And everybody on this call knows that in order for a reverse osmosis system to last a lot longer, they really need to take the hardness out of it, because that hardness is going to destroy the membrane. And so if somebody's interested or concerned about their drinking water, whether it be taste, and let's look at the next slide, actually, on why people buy filters, okay? The reasons they're buying bottled water: tap water doesn't taste good, and they're concerned about the contaminants in their water. If those are the top two concerns that they have, the top two concerns, then it's easy to explain to them how a drinking water system can be a huge benefit to them. And then you can follow up with protecting that drinking water system and making it last a lot longer by talking about a water conditioner. But we've got to look at what their interests are rather than what we want to sell them. Okay, so just to recap, the top two reasons people would buy a filter at all, coincidentally, look, top two reasons they buy bottled water: tap water doesn't taste good, and they're concerned about contaminants in the water. Look at the top two reasons they buy a filtration system. They're concerned about the contaminants in the water, and the tap water doesn't taste good. Where do you see on those top two reasons that they're concerned about soap scum, about how much soap they're using? Okay, and now we're going to talk about this refrigerator filter here in a minute, but I think that this is, actually, let's talk about this slide now, and then we'll go back to the reasons people buy water filters. The number of people that have a refrigerator with a filter in it has increased. Now, I think that's because refrigerator manufacturers are making that a standard feature than people are shopping for refrigerators with a filter. I think that they do like that. In fact, as I've been in the home, and many of you probably have heard this over and over and over again, customers, you talk to them about what they're doing for the drinking water, and they say, oh, I have a refrigerator filter. Okay, what is the refrigerator filter? It's just a carbon filter. It's got a tiny little bit of carbon, and it's used exclusively for their ice cubes and in water that is dispensed out of the door on that refrigerator. All of you know that you could put in a whole house filter that would essentially give them that refrigerator filter for every faucet in the house. So maybe we don't start with the reverse osmosis. Maybe your customers are thinking, oh, I don't need that purified water. I don't need that reverse osmosis system. But they really love the refrigerator filter. Could you put in essentially a refrigerator filter for every tap pretty inexpensively? Maybe that's the approach that you use to get in front of those customers. See, time is more valuable than money. I mean, we've all heard that expression. The key to selling on city water is educating your customer, but in order to educate them, you're not going to do that at the home show, probably. You're not going to do that on a TV advertisement, especially not if you're advertising water softeners. I've been seeing a local, very popular dealer advertised on the Late Show with Stephen Colbert recently, and that's the thing that strikes me as the only thing they talk about in that commercial. It shows a guy finishing a nice install on a water softener, and I'm screaming at the TV going, where is the drinking water system? You are advertising half the system there, and it's even the half that most people aren't even interested in. It's the half that 16% of the people out there are buying. Where's the advertisement for the 77%? To the 77% of the people out there. So maybe though you're not going straight to the reverse osmosis. Maybe you look at the fact that half the people out there have refrigerator filters and probably like the taste of the water better out of the refrigerator filter. Maybe you focus on putting in a whole house carbon filter to take out the chlorine, to get in there. And then once you have that customer's attention in the home, you can begin to educate them a little more on the reverse osmosis and then the water softener. But let's look here on what factors influence their decision to purchase the water filtration system. Look at this. The concerns about contaminants, way up there, either important or very important. You've got 72% total there. Look at the concerns about washing clothes in the embarrassing soap or scum or rust stains. It's very, very low in compared to the concern about the contaminants. In fact, when you look at what people consider very important, you've got the same percentage: healthy lifestyle, improving your family's quality of life. These are all the same exact percentages, all 72% across the board. Look at that. Those numbers all help. Here 37 and 34% concerned about the general well-being and that their health would be affected. Concerns with washing clothes and dishes drops dramatically. Causing personal embarrassment because of soap scum and rust stains drops dramatically. Okay, so why are we talking about water softeners when we're presenting to our city water customers instead of starting the conversation with what they are concerned with? I really hope that this, see, every sales presentation that I've ever seen out there that comes from the manufacturers or even the way we've been trained to do it, they all tend to start on this water softener. And then what ends up happening is you get the sticker shock, right? The customers, because the water softener is the most expensive component. And so a lot of salespeople, they, you know, you've got let's say a $3,000 water softener for some of the name brand big manufacturers out there. That's not uncommon to have a $2,000 or $3,000 water softener. And I think what ends up happening is salespeople are afraid that customers can't afford to buy that reverse osmosis system. Well, I can tell you the cool thing about the reverse osmosis system is they are already paying for it. If they are buying bottled water, and 77% of them are, if they're buying bottled water, they are already paying for it. So when you go in and you talk to them about a drinking water system, about a reverse osmosis system, most of the people out there can rent or finance a reverse osmosis system for $25 to $30 a month at most. Most of the companies on this call probably have a program like that. And if not, I'd recommend putting one in place. That's a fraction of what customers buy bottled water for, what they spend on bottled water a month. So you're not asking them to spend any more money. All you're doing is asking them to take the money from one thing and put it into something else that's a lot more convenient and frankly a lot more effective. Okay, so why else? Now I'm going to hop on the soapbox a little bit, and some of your customers out there are kind of on the same soapbox, and if they're not, they might be interested in knowing about it. Okay, first off, before I get into this situation where it sounds like I'm bashing the heck out of bottled water, I believe there are benefits of bottled water. Okay, I am a strong supporter of the bottled water industry. Without a strong bottled water infrastructure out there, people are screwed when they have tornadoes or hurricanes or earthquakes or any other of these huge disasters that come to be. I mean, we've had several in the last decade in this country without a strong bottled water infrastructure in place, where people are in a world of hurt. So I am not anti-bottled water. I'm absolutely not. We live in a country where people like their convenience. It's easy to grab. When I travel, one of the first things I do is go buy bottled water because I'm used to reverse osmosis water, and I go other places and I guess I'm a little bit of a water snob, but also there's a real health reason there as well. If there are different sulfides in the water or different things in the water, you know, it can have an impact on your stomach. As some of you know, sulfides can cause a laxative effect if you're not used to them. And I travel so much that I don't want to have to deal with that when I'm working with the client. So I buy bottled water. I mean, I'm not suggesting that we completely eliminate the bottled water industry. I don't think that's what we should be doing at all. But we are talking about what people do in their homes. Okay, in their homes. Let's look a little bit at the bottled water cost. Okay, Americans, as we've already determined, 77% of them buy bottled water. Bottled water, when you go to the convenience store, can cost, you know, if you're buying it individually as a bottle, can cost up to $1.50 a bottle. You take that and you compare it, that's $9 a gallon, 128 ounces in a gallon, $9 a gallon. Now, we complain about gasoline and the cost of gasoline. You're buying an individual bottle of water, $9, and it can cost more. You get into some of the fancy smancy brand names, and it can cost even more than that. But $9 a gallon. Now, granted, people, you can go and find a case of water for $3 or $4 nowadays. But people are spending a ton of that. They're buying 3 or 4 of those a week sometimes, especially with larger families. And by the way, the bottled water industry, it's estimated that we spend $100 billion per year on bottled water. $100 billion. I feel like Carl Sagan. 100 billion. There's billions of dollars. That's probably a horrible Carl Sagan impression, but you get the point. billions and billions of dollars. That's huge. Now, okay, maybe that, who cares? Maybe that's not that big of a deal, right? $100 billion spent on bottled water in this country. Well, we use approximately 70 million plastic water bottles in this country a day. 70 million plastic water bottles a day, with 60 million of them going back to the landfills or to the Pacific Vortex, that great big huge trash dump in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. If you are not familiar with the Pacific Vortex, by the way, or the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, what they call it, if you're not familiar with what that is, I strongly encourage you to Google that. Your customers may not know about it, and they should, okay? 70 million plastic water bottles with 60 million of them going into landfills. Let's put that in a different perspective there, okay? That is 255.5 billion water bottles used a year, with 219 billion going into landfills or the ocean. And by the way, that's almost 42,000 plastic water bottles being disposed of per minute, just in this country. 42,000. Now, you want to know about my little soapbox? I can tell you, I'm not suggesting, like I said, that we eliminate the bottled water industry, but I believe that we can significantly impact the amount of bottled water people use. For a family in their home use, let's set a goal to cut their bottle usage in half. Let's keep them from cooking and drinking with it and using these plants. Let's have an impact, a global impact, with what we do for a living. So part of what I'm talking about here, we're going to get into the substance on how to present this to your customers in a minute, but I think one of the biggest challenges that we have in our industry is that so many people out there representing this industry don't see the need to present drinking water systems. And so one of the things that I want you on this call to understand is that we should be talking about this. We should be talking about it first and foremost. It should be our primary conversation. Okay, so I want you to kind of to start looking at it a little differently. Our customers are interested in this product. Energy costs, by the way, it takes enough oil to fuel 100,000 cars per year, just in the bottled water industry. Okay, 100,000 cars per year. And by the way, I've read recently that when you account for all of the plastics we use in this country, we use more energy and oil to manufacture, recycle, and transport our plastics in this country than we do in all of our residential vehicles. And that becomes a factor when you are talking about water softeners, not only the bottled water industry, but let's look at where a lot of plastics come from. They come, soaps and detergents come in plastic bottles. And with the water conditioner in the home, we cut our soap and detergent usage down by 75%. Everybody knows that. We've all seen the weight to build the value. We've all seen the soap surveys that we have there. Okay, we can cut our soap usage down by 75%. That means 75% less plastic being used for our soaps and detergents. Just a note on that, what we do for a living, you guys, has an impact. It has a global impact. All right, it's a big deal what we do. What we do is way more than just selling softeners and drinking water systems. What we do makes a difference. Air pollution, 25 million tons of carbon dioxide just from the bottled water industry. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. How? All right, and hopefully I've convinced you that you should be talking about it. Maybe you understand now that your approach shouldn't be necessarily with water softeners. Look at your marketing. What are you advertising? When you're spending all that money on that TV or radio ad, is it to get people to buy a water softener on that city water market? Are you trying to convince them that they need a water softener? I can tell you that your city water, your municipality, is convincing them otherwise, because by law, the public water supplies have to make available to their customers what they call a CCR, Consumer Confidence Report. That has to come out. And if you've ever had an opportunity to read your local Consumer Confidence Report, it's written by marketing people. And one of the first things it says is, wow, we're doing such a great job of treating your water. Your water is awesome. How lucky you are to be on this municipal water supply. It's marketing. They want you, as the consumer, to feel good about that, paying that water bill. Oh man, I'm so lucky I'm on city water. Okay, so when you're advertising out there and you see the installer installing that neat and nice water softener at that house, customers are going, oh, that doesn't apply to me. And then they take a sip of their bottled water. Okay, so what equipment? Well, we got to determine what we're, first off, what your customers need. Is it point of entry or is it point of use? But what are your customers buying? I think that we've kind of made that clear. What are your customers buying on city water? They're probably, I mean, some of them obviously are buying water softeners. Some of them want more educated people, but the vast majority of them, they never even gave any thought to buying a water softener. If you happen to live in a municipality where there is an awareness that they need a softener, that the scale buildup is there, you're pretty fortunate. Most areas in this country, the municipalities, you've got realtors, you've got development salespeople. They're telling their customers, oh, buy this house. We're on city water. It's way better to be on city water. But yet that customer is not, now, if they're in the house, they're going to see pretty quickly, 3-4 months, that scale build up. But I can tell you, most of them, when they first move into that house, they don't know what that scale is. I mean, how many people have lived with that scale their entire lives? They think that's just the way it's supposed to be. You can educate them about that scale and how to fix that scale, but the first step is getting in front of the house, getting in front of them. You got to sit down at their kitchen table and explain that to them. And if you're going to explain it to them, if you're going to get their time, get them to spend their time with you, you've got to make them curious about what they're already interested in. Okay, and that's probably either the chlorine in the water. I mean, that's why they have that screw-on shower head that takes the chlorine out of their shower, or that refrigerator filter, or that pure filter they've got hooked to the sink. And just a reminder, that is water treatment, by the way. When somebody buys one of those filters, that refrigerator filter, that's water treatment. Those, I think a lot of people in this industry, they don't think of that stuff as water treatment, as a refrigerator filter. If your customer chooses a refrigerator with a filter in it over a refrigerator without a filter in it, they're interested in water treatment. They may not make that connection exactly that that's what they're doing, but they are buying water treatment. So try marketing chlorine removal. Instead of talking about a water softener, try advertising a whole house refrigerator filter. Get their curiosity there. Some other ways in a city that you can begin to approach this. Now, I'm not saying cut out your advertising entirely. I am saying sit down and reevaluate how you're advertising, what you want to present to your customers if you want it to be a little more effective. And by the way, the cool thing about this, your competition is still advertising water softeners. Okay, your competition is not on this call right now. They're not going to think about it this way. They're going to still continue to advertise water softeners, and you are going to be so far ahead of them because you are going to be talking to your customers about what your customers want to hear about. Okay, but some of the things that you can do in addition to those little mailers and the TV and the radio is focus on building an awareness, become an expert in your area. So some of the things you can do, and we'll talk about these a little more specifically here, water clinics. And we'll talk about that again in a second. You can do a water clinic out there, association meetings, water association meeting, all of those developments out there. One of the places to do a water clinic, you've got all these developments out there, all these subdivisions. They all have an annual or biannual association meeting. A lot of them have a group, an association yard sale or garage sale. See if you can offer a water clinic to them or some sort of education group. It doesn't have to be at a strip plaza like we'll talk about in a second. It could be at one of these associations, at one of these developments that are in city water. Do not make it a sales thing. Make it an education thing. Remember, the key to getting in and selling on city water is education, because you've got to build that awareness for your customers. You've got to make them curious about what the solutions are. You've got to, they are already aware of the problem. They just don't know they're aware of it. They're buying Tilex and squeegees and all these things to deal with. They're using a full cap and then a little bit when they're doing laundry. They're filling both cups up in their dishwasher and buying jet dry and all of those things. They are already treating their water. Okay, they are just not aware of it yet. So get out there and make them aware, educate them. Community service groups like Optimist Club and Kiwanis and Rotary, we'll talk about that. Your local library, we'll talk about that in a second. Realtor meetings. Realtors are selling the houses, and if your realtors are out there telling people how great the water is, you should buy this house because it's on city water, then what we need to do is educate the realtors. And schools. Let's get out there and talk to our kids. Talk to the schools, to the students. Now, obviously, a 7th grader is probably not going to buy a water softener. Not yet. But if you're looking at this as a long-term career, that 7th grader, in no time, is going to be buying a water softener. They also, if you can educate them, are going to yell at their parents. I have a 16-year-old daughter, almost 16, and let me tell you, when she sees me doing something that she thinks is bad for the environment or that I shouldn't be doing socially, my daughter absolutely tells me about it. She will lay into me about it. So if we build awareness at the schools, these kids are going to go home, they're going to talk to their parents, and let me tell you also, if you've given a class at the school and you're involved in the schools and you're doing something like this, then and then you walk into a customer's house that night and the student says, "Mr. Thompson, what are you doing here?" Mr. Thompson, the kid knows you, the parents will say, "You know him?" "Yeah, he came to my school, he's one of my teachers," or whatever. Done. That's awesome. It shows that community involvement, it shows you care. So there's a real benefit for getting into the schools. So water clinics, let's talk about that very briefly. Okay, water clinics on city water can be a little different than water clinics in a well water area. What you're going to find, I'm getting some comments on here. I'm sorry, you guys have been trucking along. Yeah, so just some comments here that we're getting, an agreement that people are buying 4 cases of water because they're concerned about their tap water, but they still use tap water for coffee and to prepare their families' meals. Yeah, that's just some agreement there. I'm glad that you guys are with me on this. Okay, so water clinics. Sorry about that on the chats. I've kind of missed that a little bit, you guys. Sometimes Jen's on the road today. Normally she's reading along and kind of helping me out here to make sure I don't miss anything. So bear with me if I miss a question. I will try and get back with you, or get my attention. You can unmute yourself and get my attention that way. But water clinics, basically, water clinics are a term that a lot of us in the industry have heard, and I don't know if there's any set rules. I've had a lot of success with water clinics, not only when I was in sales, but also when with clients that we worked with across the country. But water clinics on city water, what you're going to end up having are people that are concerned with bacteria. They want you to do a bacteria test. They sometimes want to know if the city, especially if there's been a boil water alert, you'll get a lot of that. Now, what I would recommend you do, a couple things, water clinic on a city water situation, build a relationship with a local laboratory. We had success doing this with one of our clients just this year, where we went and built a relationship, because on city water especially, even on well water, people will come up to you and they go, "Well, do you guys test for bacteria? Do you do this?" And you can say, "No, we don't. Our focus primarily is on aesthetics, tastes good, smells good, looks good. However, we recommend going to ABC Labs here, and in fact, here's a bottle with instructions on how to do it." So you build a relationship with the local laboratory, and it adds some credibility to you. Get the health department. If it's on city water, go to the health department and make a partnership with them. See, I think a lot of us in this industry, we tend to, in some ways, see the city water as the enemy. I think that's the wrong approach. I think that if you go to the health department and you get in, you have a conversation with them, and you let them know that you're not going to be trying to bash them. And I think that's the health department or the city sometimes has an animosity towards water treatment companies, and that's because we're out there telling people how bad their water is. Oh, you need this water, it's so bad. But if you build a relationship with that city water and your approach, those city water officials, and your approach is, you know, you're pretty lucky you live on city water. They have done a really good job of treating the water. It makes our job a lot easier. It would have been a lot more expensive for you if you were on a well. But since you're on city water, it's a lot less expensive. We can actually, it makes our job to treat it a lot easier because they've already done it. So they've gotten it to a point where it's all you have to do now is take the chlorine out and a little bit of hardness and the drinking water. It's a lot easier. So you build on what the city has done instead of contradicting what it says in that consumer confidence report. And this is what you can do with these water clinics. Now, the cool thing is, let's say you set up a water clinic from 10 to 2 on a Saturday. People will bring you water samples. Tell me something else you're doing for 4 hours on Saturday where people will bring you samples of their water and tell you they have a concern. If there's something that you can be doing that gets you in front of that many qualified customers, go for it. Go do it. If there's not, even if you have 3 customers come, you're sitting there for 4 hours and 3 people bring you water on a Saturday, that's a successful water clinic. Okay, now I've done them that way. I've done them where there's been 3 or 4 people come over the course of 4 hours. I used to say I've never had a water clinic where we didn't have anybody show up. That wasn't the case. We did one for a client in Pennsylvania where it was rainy and cold and nasty, and it was a new sales professional, and we tested. It was so freezing. We bought lots of coffee from the coffee shop in the parking lot and tested a lot of rainwater as education. That's the only one, though, that I have ever done where nobody showed up. Generally speaking, you're going to have at least 5 or 10 people show up bringing you water, and the whole goal there is to talk to them. You have their undivided attention. They're qualified. It's like a home show for essentially free. They're very inexpensive. You can do it anywhere. I have a webinar, by the way, instructions. We've done lots of calls on this. You can get those recordings to find a lot more detail on water clinics, or just give me a call. I can tell you how to put together a water clinic. We can help you put one together. But make sure that you are familiar with what the city is saying about their water. Make sure you understand the CCR. Find a niche water problem, and in a lot of cases it may be chlorine that you're appealing to, that you're talking to people about. And get the local business involved. Maybe do this at a grocery store. Some of the successful ones we did this for a client in Ohio. We also did this for a client in Minnesota just this year, where they made an arrangement with a local grocery store, and for the week we did the water clinic in the parking lot of that grocery store, and all week long we made up flyers, and all week long in the groceries, the cashiers were putting a flyer in the grocery bags and talking about it. We put up a sign next to the bottled water aisle, and what they did in both cases is they bought a $100 gift card to the grocery store, and we did a drawing. So we gave away, people came up when they signed up, we did a drawing and gave away a $100 gift card to the grocery store. Be ready to explain that CCR. Here's just a couple pictures. This is one that we did. Now this was a well water one, and it was in Michigan. We actually did free arsenic testing. I will tell you, this day we tested in 4 hours over 100 samples of water. People brought us over 100. It was the most successful water clinic we ever did. Total cost, including the banner and this canopy, was one-time expense was about $500, and we sold 12 units out of that day. This is another picture of one that we did just a couple months ago for a client in Minnesota, and they did it in the grocery store parking lot here, and they had 20 people show up that day in the course of 4 hours. Okay, community service groups. First off, if you're going to become a member, and all of this is building awareness, okay? And I'm going to blow through these because I want to talk about presentation in a minute, some things that you can do when you actually get in front of the customer. But it is important on city water sometimes to educate your customers and to build awareness. If you are going to join a community service group, Now, these are different than something like BNI, which I do recommend. If you can find a BNI group, Business Networking International, or a lead exchange group, the philosophy is the same. You have to give to get. Okay, those are groups designed for lead referrals and to build relationships with other people. So those are good to be involved with, but I'm specifically talking about community service groups like Optimus or Kiwanis or Rotary or those types of groups. And by the way, I want to point out the little angel with the cross through it down here. This is not that I'm anti-angels. What this is that none of these are miraculous. What that means is that all the things that we talk about, all the training that I do, it's not a miracle thing. It's not one thing. I had somebody just recently say to me, well, isn't your #1 way of creating business water clinics? No, I wouldn't say. I would say that that's one of 20 different ways that I would like to create business. So you need to do a combination of things in order to have success. And frankly, some of this stuff it's long term. You know, it takes 6 months to really begin to see the impact, to see the results of doing these things. They're not miraculous. So, but community service groups like Kiwanis or Rotary or all of these, if you're going to join them, these are all business leaders, first off, usually that are part of them. But don't go in there expecting that you're going to get a bunch of leads out of it. You got to go in there and give to get. Your philosophy, my philosophy in teaching sales professionals in general is give more than you take. Don't ever walk into a customer's house and say, oh, I'm going to get so much commission out of this. You have to walk in there believing that you are going to help them. I mean, in that way, you're going to get referrals. You are going to get sales. Sales are going to come. But don't ever walk out of that house feeling like you were asking more than you were willing to give. And by the way, price should never be an issue. Never, if you have that philosophy. If you believe that, if you're afraid of your price, if you think what you're selling is too expensive, then frankly, you're not giving enough. You are not offering enough. I mean, you don't need any special closing technique or fancy lines to get people to buy something. Really, the philosophy is quite simple. Offer more than you're asking. And that goes for community service groups as well. Be involved. Don't just join and put your name on the roster. Be involved with them. Don't go in there and sell. I'm past president of the Optimus Club, the local Optimus group, and I can tell you we have members come and go, and you can always tell the ones that are going to be there a very short period of time because they come in there and their focus is selling whatever business they are. And then when they realize that it's not a lead exchange group and that we are looking for people that actually do stuff for kids in the community and people that are going to be involved, they're gone. So don't go in there to sell. You will get a lot of sales from it, but don't go in there just to sell. Even if you are not directly involved in the community service group, they are always looking for speakers, always. If you are looking to put together a 20 or 25-minute presentation for a Kiwanis group or one of these community service groups, I have a PowerPoint on the website on Moti-Vitality.com. I also have a little quiz, a little general water treatment quiz that you can download and modify. I like that, giving out a little quiz, letting people answer the questions. You can modify it for local water issues, and then use your time to speaking in front of these 20 or 25 people or however many are there. You get free breakfast or lunch out of it, and you have a little bit of time to educate them. They are all looking for speakers. I know in my club, they're constantly looking to put speakers on the roster. Go in if you want to do it, explain the local CCR. I mean, that CCR is such an awesome thing. I mean, the city puts it out there. I mean, those customers, they read it, but they don't understand it. They don't know what it is. Go in and explain it to them. It's going to you're going to set yourself up as the expert in the community. Library, same thing. You know, your libraries, most of the public libraries will give you a free room to do a presentation. You can't charge for it, but you can advertise it, put it up at the library. It's there for education. They'll give you free rooms. You can teach classes on this stuff. All this stuff builds awareness. Realtors, so much you can do with realtors, but they are the first ones in all those houses. You got to educate them. Be careful about giving kickbacks and stuff like that to the realtors. You also have to be very aware of how you can serve them. Remember, they are straight commission sales professionals as well. Most of them do not have rubber ducks on their heads, by the way. I don't know why I felt the urge to do that. Just that's creepy. but anyway, how can you serve the realtors? Okay, how can you serve them? I will tell you, there are ways that you're at risk of costing a realtor sale. If you cost them a sale, for example, let's say they give you a referral on a house that's about to close. You tell the realtor, hey, if there's equipment in that house, let me know. I'll go out there and check it, or I'll go out there and check the water. And they give you this house, and then you get in touch and you talk to the homeowner or the potential buyer of that house, and you say, you're going to need a water softener, you're going to need a drinking water system or a chlorine filter. And that potential buyer then goes back to the realtor and says, yeah, we're still going to close, but we want the seller to throw in this reverse osmosis system, or we want them to throw in a water treatment system. Now the realtor has to make a choice of, he has to go back to their seller and say, if you want to close, they want you to buy this system. Now the seller wants to sell, the realtor is probably going to cut into their commission. They're going to do it this one time. You're going to get the sale out of it, but you're never, ever, ever going to get another referral from the realtor. I have on Moti-Vitality.com lots of stuff on realtors. I have a PowerPoint presentation you can do at realtor sales meetings or at realtor association meetings. I have a recording of a presentation that I did for a realtor just this year at a realtor sales meeting. There are so many different tools available for working with realtors. I encourage you to go to Moti-Vitality.com and explore that. If there's something that you need help customizing, let me know. I can do that. Just because of time, I mean, we could spend an entire hour, and we have actually, just about working with realtors. New home packages, though, see if you can get into their new home package. Okay, put something in there and something advertised and market. Everybody looks at those coupons. When I just changed my address, my business address, to a P.O. box, and even though I've been in my house for 14 years, I got a whole big new home package that came from all these places, and I looked through that and used the coupons in there. I used several of them, and that was just because I got a new P.O. box. That same kind of stuff is offered when realtors sell a house. They usually have some sort of a package that they give to the homeowners with all kinds of coupons. See if you can get involved in that. Yeah, address the concern. Yeah, thank you, Mark. It's a good point. Address the concern early in the conversation with realtors, and you'll be able to get past their defensive feelings. Okay, schools, we talked about it a little bit. There's already credibility there. I do have again, on Moti-Vitality.com, a PowerPoint presentation designed to speak directly to your students, your teachers, especially your social studies teachers or your science teachers. They will put together, usually once a year, I go speak in front of all the 7th graders in my school system. So they bring them into the auditorium, every 7th grader in there, they bring them in, they give me an hour, and I do a presentation. That PowerPoint is on Moti-Vitality.com. Feel free to download it. You are giving back too. This is all about giving back to the community. Give more than you take. And remember, these are your future customers. Even though they're not buying anything right now, they do have influence on their parents, and they are future customers. Colleges, same thing. Get in there and teach those college classes. Okay, get involved. I don't know if you heard that or not. I'm gonna make sure I mute everybody there, unless somebody was trying to say something. If you were trying to say something, I'm sorry, I just remuted you. So try it again. Okay, now let's spend the last part of this talking about what to say in the presentation. Okay, so we've talked about how to get involved with that customer, how to build awareness. Let's talk about what to say in your presentation. One of the questions that I love to ask when I'm giving my presentation, early in the presentation, is, when we talk about water treatment, we like to talk about total water management, but we break that water management up into 2 different categories. We've got the water that goes on you. That's the water you bathe in, flush with, do your dishes, wash your clothes, stuff like that. It accounts for about 99% of the water that you use. And then we've got the water that goes in you. That's the water you cook with, drink, make pasta, give to your pets, your kids, stuff like that. Which would you say is a higher priority? Water that goes on you or the water that goes in you? I love asking that question. See, when we train new salespeople, or even people that have been doing it a while, it's incredible to me how many of them just start with the softener, and then they talk about the RO so often as a side item, as an add-on. If we can determine where your customers' interests are, and you will sometimes have them say, well, I think we're mostly worried about the water that goes on us. Fine, start with the softener in that way. If they say, I think we're mostly concerned about the drinking water, why would you start with the water softener? We've got to find out what their needs are. What's a higher priority to them? Now, I can tell you, after having done this in thousands and thousands of presentations, the most common answer to that question is, well, both. All right, fine. Both of them are a priority. Now you can ask more questions. Are you buying bottled water? You can narrow it down to find out which direction your presentation needs to go. I think a lot of times it's because the manufacturers and a lot of the way we've trained salespeople is by teaching them the script that they have to go by. And I'm not saying don't use a sort of a script. I am saying be able to understand what your customer's needs are and be able to adjust that script to match what the customer is interested in. Don't just throw out this big net and hope to catch them. Okay? Focus on what is a priority for them. And I love the if you were question. If you were to put in a system, where would you install it? If you were to put in a drinking water system, would you want it under the sink or would you want it in the basement? If you were to put in a drinking water system, would you want the faucet on the right or the left side? If you were to put in a system, or if we have what you're looking for, something that meets your needs, would you put in both the drinking water system and the softener, or one or the other? Okay, if you were is a great question. Now, for me, and this is controversial amongst trainers, even some of the trainers that I really, really respect, like Tom Hopkins and Brian Tracy, they all talk about building the value before you give the price. I can tell you this is something, and Jen can attest to this because we have watched when we ride along with salespeople. Maybe I have a different opinion here because we ride along and observe so many presentations with salespeople. I've done this for the last decade, just hundreds and hundreds of observations on this. And what you end up finding is a customer that they're constantly asking early on, how much is it? And the salesperson says, well, we'll get to that. Let me test the water and then I'll explain to you how they work. And then a few minutes later, the customer says, well, how much is it? And the salesperson says, well, I can't really answer that yet. If you're buying something, you as a consumer, are you curious about how much something costs? I am. When I buy something, well, here's what I've come to believe. I've come to believe that customers, when you walk into the house, they are curious about two things. They want to know how long it's going to take, and they want to know how much it's going to cost. So I talk about it in the plumbing assessment when I'm doing the plumbing assessment. I say, well, do you have a budget? Have you had an opportunity to research water conditioning or water treatment? Yeah, we've looked at it a little bit. Do you have a budget in mind? Well, how much do they cost? I can tell you that the most expensive system that I would recommend to you today would run about $4,500. Now that $4,500 would include the very best drinking water system on the market, the very best water conditioner, and if we needed to, a whole house filter. And then they can go down from there depending on which components you need or want. $4,500, holy moly, that's what I call the big eyes, giving it to them at the big eyes, okay? That's where you can talk about a combo unit, or you can talk about different components. Instead of adding it on, you're talking about it at the beginning. Now, instead of that customer saying, how much is it, how much is it, how much is it, they're going, why is it that much? And by the way, if 5 minutes into the presentation, they go, $4,500, holy moly, I could never afford that much. That's way too much. Okay, well, do you have a budget in mind? Do you have a number that you've really looked at? What is the number you can't afford? Now they come back and they say, oh man, the most we could do would probably be $3,000. All right, can I make a recommendation in that 3,000 range? Absolutely. Absolutely I can. And I personally, when I'm doing a presentation, would way rather know that up front than 2 hours at the presentation and they go, well, let's think about it. Because, well, let's think about it means they're concerned about the price. So I give them the big eyes early instead of at the end. I let them start to get used to that big price. And instead of adding on, well, the softener is 2,000 and then it's another 1,200 for this RO. Instead of adding it on, I can then take it down if I need to. Here's the thing that a lot of people, when it comes to drinking water systems, that they don't recognize or that they forget. It's not about you. It's not your story. So it doesn't matter whether you would put in a drinking water system or not. This has to be about the customer and what their needs are. Don't forget that. When you go in and you're talking to that customer, it doesn't matter. Real quick, some objections on ROs, and we have presentations that we've done on ROs, but there are objections that you've got to learn to overcome. People say, well, doesn't that lower the pH a lot? No, it doesn't. That's a misconception. I'm not going to get into the chemistry of it, but generally you will have a small reduction of pH, but that's only because you're taking out of the water the things that would bind hydrogen ions. Those of you that have WQA certification probably understand that a little bit more. pH is lowered a little, but not dramatically, and fine. Most of the reverse osmosis systems out there add a mineral filter that you can put in, and it raises alkalinity or raises minerals back up, so that's an easy one. Strips to good minerals, I don't have enough time to get into that, but there are so many resources out there that you can direct people to on that. Wastewater, most of the reverse osmosis systems, even the least efficient ones out there, use less than 1 flush on a toilet per day. So multiply a toilet flush or even a shower. Comparatively, it is the most efficient water using appliance in the home. Other objections that you run into, like I said, we could spend an entire class, an entire webinar or a class just on educating about reverse osmosis systems and how they work and how they sell them. In fact, we have. So if you need more help on that specifically, let me know. The last tip I can give you for selling on city water in this hour is if you're not making tea in the home. Now, I mean, there are rare occasions. We have a client in New Jersey where their TDS literally is on average 60 to 70 parts per million on the city water. Even on the well water, they've got really low TDS out there, and the tea doesn't work. Incidentally, even in that area where they've got 60 TDS in their water, bottled water is still, one of the first things we did is I went on a field trip with their team, and we took them over to the closest grocery store and looked at the bottled water aisle. People are still buying bottled water. But if your TDS is 100 or more, make tea. You should be carrying Lipton tea and making tea in every single house. Every single house. This is, I know that there are reasons not, people don't like to hand wash. They don't like to do the magic show stuff in the presentation. Fine. If there's one demonstration that you do in your presentation, it should be making tea, because you can visually see the difference here. Okay, what you're seeing in this one is tea, water, and all the stuff that's in the water. What you see in this one is simply tea. Laminate the front cover of that Lipton tea box and ask your customers straight out. You think Lipton knows what their tea is supposed to look like? Lipton tea is an orange pekoe tea. Which one of these looks more orange to you? Okay, make sure you are making tea. It's an awesome leave behind. I even recommend going to the Dollar Tree, buying glasses, or if your company has logos that they can put on the glasses as a leave behind. I like the Dollar Tree has those kind of glasses. Those are $1 a piece. So for every appointment, it costs me $2, and I leave those behind. And even if somebody a moment before wasn't interested in drinking water, I leave those behind, and the difference gets greater and greater and greater as the hours go by. They see those, and they will notice a difference. I promise you, will increase your RO sales if you make tea and use that. If you want more specifics on how to do do the T demonstration. We have a script on that on Moti-Vitality.com you can download, as well as a video that you can watch to see what it looks like. Okay, so any questions? Want to remind everybody we have our Thursday morning MV Pro call. It's 8:30 Eastern. You can also download the past calls off iTunes. Just subscribe to Moti-Vitality. Don't forget the hyphen. Upcoming webinars next month is embezzled. Like we already talked about, we're going to talk about tips. That's primarily for owners and managers, tips to avoid losing revenue. And then we're going to talk in January about New Year's resolutions and goal setting. With that, I want to wish everybody a really happy Thanksgiving season. Please be safe, and I look forward to speaking with you and serving you further. If anybody has any questions or comments, please let us know, and please don't forget to give us feedback. I want to know how we did. Thank you, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you next month, if not before.